Hi, Danny. We couldn't think of anything funny to start with, so what I'm going to do is I have a thread here from Daka from, let me see here, 2010? 2010.
Oh, nice.
It's under the, you can find it if you search, it's under Funny Noob Stories. Noob, of course, referring to new player. The comment is, this morning I went to a games workshop in Milton Keynes and I played a game with the beginners because I was bored. Some of the younger kids were shouting at me, "You're not allowed 3 HQ units, only one is. The others are sergeants." He said we can't have heavy support today. It's a dedicated transport, a Razorback with a las cannon. How come your Space Marines are black and orange? They should be blue and gold. Are they chaos? It's my own renegade chapter, but still loyal to the Emperor. What's a chapter? Wow, I've never seen those kinds of Space Marines before. To my friend who collects Eldar. It was hilarious and frustrating at the same time, but they were beginners. That's all I got. Oh, man.
What a story.
Yeah.
That was an emotional journey.
That was an emotional journey. It was Michael Bay-esque. Yeah.
I could feel the heat from the explosions.
Yeah, some more noob stories here. I put Lysander with 5 Stormbolter Terminators. Noob enough. Lol. I deep strike him at the corner of the map thinking he would be useful there. Lysander did not crush skulls that day. Lysander, of course, whose nickname is Skull Crusher, and not Pussy, who got kidnapped for like hundreds of years. But that's a different matter entirely.
I respect real war heroes, John, ones that don't get captured. What you guys didn't just see is John almost spit out his drink all over the microphone.
Holy shit, that's a spicy take right there. Lysander's family's going to be pissed now. Holy cow. Hey, welcome to Mob Rules. I am John, joined, of course, by
Danny.
And we are back, and it doesn't feel like it's been 2 weeks. Mostly because my hobby progress has been about as nutritionally sound as a McDonald's meal this past couple of weeks. But what have you been up to?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Let's get right on into it here.
You just jumped right in there. No time for even a breath.
Hell yeah. Just
John. Yeah. Just cut in line right in front of me.
I learned from the best.
Pull the old Nanavati on me. And
I read this book, and it taught me everything I need to know. What you guys can't see is I'm holding up a physical copy of The Art of War. It's a visual joke referring to the Art of War coaching service on an audio medium.
Well, yeah. Hey, how about we talk about what we're going to talk about today, and then I'll talk about.
Hell yeah, that's probably way more helpful to see if people want to turn off right now or wait until 10 minutes in.
I mean, as much as I love to just lure them in with some hobby progress and then flip right to a nonsensical interview with Val Heffelfinger, which is what actually happens. That is what is happening in this episode. Yes. I hope you guys are ready. Let's see. So we're going to talk about our hobby progress. We're going to talk to Val. We'll probably play some ads.
Hell yeah.
I mean, are we playing ads? No?
Yeah, and for that one guy who bitches, the whistling commercial will be in there.
Hell yeah.
Specifically because we love it and because you complain about it.
We're going to talk to Innes. That may be a couple segments away, but that'll happen.
That is next, sir. You don't have it in your show notes because I didn't add it in the show notes.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I'm just over here happy that you read
your army list.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt again. Yeah, I'm just
fine.
I'm just happy that you read my show notes. I'm super happy.
Yeah, for once.
I don't read those.
I just make this up as I go.
Hell yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about Battlecore. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, time dependent. We will, but yeah, we're definitely going to, like I said, we have a great conversation with Val. We had him scheduled for 30 minutes to talk about a very specific subject, and we ended up talking for an hour about, amongst other things, the origins of the Olympic Games.
Which somehow was related to 40K. I don't know.
Yeah, not having any places to play 40K, so him stalking every celebrity on Warhammer through audio, all kinds of great stuff in there. Those
Real
are just
solid stuff.
Those are just the highlights, guys. There's more to come.
Yeah, there's definitely some lowlights, but those are the highlights. But yeah, so let's talk about hobby stuff.
Hell yeah, let's do it. I've thrown down the Art of War.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
I did. Yeah.
I'm proud of you.
I'm going for all kinds of visual jokes, just to really kind of make sure we're as inaccessible as possible.
Drive it home. I mean, I want to make us be as unrelatable as possible to as many people. I think that's the goal of this episode.
Hell yeah. That's the goal of every episode. But Danny,
I spent $3,000 gold plating the heavy intercessors that I got the other day to add on to that inaccessible. No, I'm just kidding.
Rolling in that Patreon money. What, your army isn't gold plated? What?
Thanks, guys. Losers. I did get another 5 heavy intercessors in the mail.
Oh yeah, did you split some boxes, or is that an eBay lot?
Yeah, I just bought 5 from eBay. I do have another couple sets of flayed ones and some chronomancers coming from Tim, which is nice.
Amazing.
Yep. So I built those, got some cool Dark Angel shoulder pads on them. I also built 5 Blade Guard veterans, or 6 Blade Guard veterans from the new multi-part kits.
Oh yeah.
Man, those kits are really nice. Lots of bits, tons of extras. They're really cool models.
And then I don't know if you posted a picture, Danny, but you put the Dark Angel kind of like the feather heads on there. And man, does a simple head swap.
Yeah, the Deathwing companion heads.
Yeah, does a simple little head swap make it just amazing. They turned out super, super good. Like they almost look like they were made to be Deathwing.
I'm hyped. I may do a little bit more work on them. I got some Terminator boxes that I need to find with Deathwing bits, so I might switch their storm shields for the more like triangular Deathwing storm shields with like the angel icons on them, so they'll make them a little bit more. And then I got some Shapeways shoulder pads on the way for them as well. Some Deathwing shoulder pads for those guys, since they don't make Deathwing shoulder pads for Primaris stuff yet. So working on them. I played many a game. And by that I mean 2 games. I played 2 games.
Was that virtual games?
Yeah. 2 virtual games. Since the last time we recorded. I have not played an in-person game for quite some time. We gotta do that sometime.
We do. We need to, the next couple of weeks, definitely get done. I want to throw down my new list against you because I feel it's good.
Well, and we'll have some new, you might have some new toys to play with.
Oh yeah.
By the way, Ennis and I, we were chatting a little bit before this, and I think that there might be a pretty good Plague Marine spam list with this new detachment the Games Workshop kind of previewed today.
You know, everyone's kind of shitting on it.
In the week.
Everyone's kind of shitting on it a little bit, but I think it's real good.
I don't know. So
that's Power Fist.
I kind of agree with him, right? I think the Power Fist is money. He disagrees, but that's fine. He's not right about everything.
No.
But the Plague Marine squads, the Deep Strike In can always rapid fire their bolters, so it doesn't matter how far away they are, right? And if you take, there's the banner that 6 is to hit auto wound, right? And then there's that relic where 6 is to hit, do an extra hit in addition. You can turn them into plague weapons and reroll all their failed wound rolls with the stratagem. So I think there's some play for like deep striking squads of those guys down and like hitting people with good AP on their bolters, like a surprising amount of AP on their bolters.
And you can even drop a Lord of
like successful wounds.
You can drop a Lord of Virulence beside them to give them a -1 on their bolters too. Yeah.
Yeah, if you spend the point to make their bolters plague weapons, because this thing only works on plague weapons. Weirdly.
Yeah, which is so worth. It was so worth it. Danny's face froze up.
Yeah, and they're dope. They're dope models. Anyway, so anyway, I played a couple of games with Dark Angels. I played 1 practice game. Maybe I played 2 practice games since last time we talked. I think I played against Seth and he whooped my ass. pretty bad. There was a lot of shit talking between the two of us.
Was that with Chuck's buggy list?
Streaming setup. Yeah, Chuck's buggy list. Yeah, it was with Chuck's buggy list.
Perfect.
For sure. It's funny how often like Seth just like steals stuff from other people and then like I don't know. It's weird.
Makes entire YouTube series about how to play it. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's weird that he would take somebody's list and then make a video series about it, right? Like, like, hey, here's how you do this. Well, I don't want to hear from you. I want to hear from the person who's good. And then, but yeah, that's streaming on Dangly Boys, so you can check that out. You can hear me get pretty salty. Because Seth, I don't know what it is. His dice just turn the fuck on whenever we play. Like, no joke. It is like night and I've never had orcs roll like that in my entire life. Anytime I played them.
Well, so I'm not calling someone a cheater, but they have had that, TTS dice issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
I would say that was it, but I created the game, so if anybody was cheating with the dice, it was me.
The real Dangly Boys were the dice we changed along the way.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So here's a good example of this. Like, right. So I charge in to a squad of 5 commandos, right? I'm sorry. No, 3 commandos, right? With Ravenwing Talonmaster. Now he's got reroll to hit, reroll to wound on all of his attacks because he's got righteous repugnance on him. So he's hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s, full rerolls. Wait, no, that's not even the case. Fuck that. I'm sorry. I shoot these guys with a fucking assault cannon. 5 of them. 5 dudes with an assault cannon. Seth proceeds to roll out of the 7 wounds that I do to him. He makes like 5-6 up invulnerable saves.
Oh,
dude! So I kill like two orcs in the shooting phase. It was insane. He made all of these 6-ups like nobody fucking died. It was the most irritating thing on the planet, and it cost me like, I don't know, probably it cost me 5 primary points for sure. Then my Talonmaster got 8. Then it was super bad. Anyway, so fuck you, Seth. And then I played I played a practice game against Peter, the Falcon, which was really fun. He played Deathwatch. We may have played 2 games in the last 2 weeks. It seems like that's right. But he's played a couple iterations of Deathwatch against my Dark Angels. All these games are against my Dark Angels list. It was it was close one of the games, but then the other game was a super blowout. It looked like he was whooping my ass all game, but then like last turn, and this is kind of the style with this list, I make like in the last 2 turns, I make like 60 points. Like, just because I always take While We Stand, We Fight with this army because it's super awful to try and get rid of anything in the list. And then I take usually another end game secondary, and I'm usually scoring 15 points on primary the last 2 turns. So I played him. I won both of those games, but really fun. And man, he did a number on my Deathwing Terminators with his Inceptors, because they have a kill team for Deathwatch that allows full rerolls against elites. And I mean, in this meta, I mean, you have to be able to deal with Deathwing. So if you can do a lot of like good AP 1 damage shots, you're gonna end up with reroll to wound. Like, you're gonna do a lot of damage to them. So he killed them down to 3 guys out of 10, like in 1 round of combat, 1 round of shooting and combat between the 2 of those things. So it was significant. I was like, oh shit. So that game, and then I played. I joined an online GT for TTS through the Northern Front Discord, which is super fun, run by John Kilcullen, who's a great guy, really good Space Wolf player. I think he's a Goonhammer contributor as well. I did play a practice game against him. I whooped up on some Space Wolves, let me tell you.
I thought I was going to say
Dark Angels did work that game. And then I played my actual opponent. He goes by Dudes. He was really, really friendly guy. Really fun game, super casual, which is great. And lots of laughs. And I managed to pull that one out too. He was playing Sisters of Battle, and I managed to kind of demech him kind of early on in the game. Like by turn 2, I destroyed both of his rhinos full of Repentia, and I was able to really put the hurt on those Repentia. He had some insanely bad dice rolls, though, the first turn. Okay, here's an example. I shot 8 bolter shots at 5 Zephyrim from some attack bikes at -1 to hit. I killed 4. Like, there's no reason why I should ever be able to kill 4.
That's a lot of,
4 of those girls. And there were 3-up saves. I made him take 5 saves. He failed 4 of them. Then I blew up a rhino, and he had to do the emergency disembarkation to like hide his unit, and rolled 10 dice, rolled 5 1s and 2s.
Oh,
so he lost half of his squad of Repentia from one of the units, like just because the rhino exploded. And then the other rhino actually exploded, like it blew up and did a bunch of mortal wounds all across his army, which was bad. So he was like not able to catch a break, but to his credit, like never once complained about that, even one time. So like, what a really stand-up guy. And then the rest of his army like couldn't hit me with a combo punch of like 2 squads of Retributors with multi-meltas and maybe 1 or 2 squads of Repentia, which would have been able to deal with the Deathwing. He was only able to get the Retributors in, and they only killed 4 Terminators. So and that was pretty much game. So yeah, so I won that one like 82-27, I think was the score. And you can see it on BCP if you want to track my progress or whatever. And creep on me as I play this tournament.
You're like, no big deal. Check my win rate. Look at those points.
Watch me put up them points.
Like, notice me, senpais.
But yeah, that's been pretty much me. John, what have you been up to?
Oh, dang, real little. I mean, this is where I would show you my my pile of painted 6 Death Shroud if the boxes had come in. But those are still on Comp 40K inspired back order. There was a Kickstarter that closed out on some terrain that I forgot about, but that's great.
Oh,
it's pre-painted kind of like foam card terrain, but it looks amazing. It's super good. It's I believe it's called Tinker Turf, and from like what they showed in the videos and the strength of it, it looks really strong. And I'm really excited to get it in. And on top of that, I ordered a new mat from Frontline with the new 44x60 table dimension. Because nice. As much as I love my current setup of some tape, I'm ready to kind of upgrade and kind of just go for the new standard, because I think, again, I don't see the tables getting bigger. The way the game plays right now is just so much fun, and it's frantic, and a lot of that comes from the reduced square footage of the board. So I got that, so I'm going to wait for all that to come in, and then I should have a pretty nice home setup from that, if I'm being honest with you. Tinker Turf Terrain. I believe they're still accepting pre-orders through Kickstarter. I continued to paint my one Gene Stealer Cult bike. That I'm trying to kind of perfect the color scheme for the Not a Cult Mining Company and social club that I've started. Which again, I think it's just, honestly, at this point, I mean, would it be nice to run a full GSC army? Yeah. But at this point, it's just nice to paint something that isn't Death Guard. I think in the last 12 months, I've painted around 4,000 to 5,000 points of Death Guard. So just something, and again, even crazy, although all my stuff is purple and gold, something that isn't purple and gold is just real nice to do. And those bikes are just amazing models. Holy cow. So much character in the little dirt bikes. And it really makes me want to watch Hackers. But I think we talked about that last time. I got a new computer in, so we should be doing some more video stuff. I am actually able to run Tabletop Simulator with the kind of armies I run, which is very model orientated. So I played around with that a little bit, tried to make my Death Guard army, and kind of played around a little there. I still think having my 60 Poxwalkers is going to be a pain in the ass to move around, but I'm excited to kind of get it in there. And then I ordered a White Dwarf subscription. I went for it. I just did the year-long one.
Really?
I did. I put down that $90 for the year subscription, and what made me do it was this month's issue, where it has the 50 bajillion Steam keys for all of the games.
Okay.
So I was like, yeah, there's been some good content there recently, and maybe we can steal some content from it by reviewing it, a la Spiky Bit style. Who knows? But I was like, it's time. They deserve it. They've done a lot for the community, which is something we attempt to talk about with Val before we derail ourselves a whole bunch there. But outside of that, I listened to some more of the new Avenging Sun book. I mean, that's super good. There's a lady knight pilot in the book who has a special Questoris knight that has a Thunderstrike gauntlet, and then the giant flamer from the giant knight, which is pretty rad.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
That's her armament on that, and I really want to make that model now. But also at the same time, I don't want to spend $250 making that model, but I feel it would look cool as shit.
I mean,
because it's reinforced. They reinforce it so that it can fit the giant flamer, and it's described as being very asymmetrical. So I think it would look really cool, and it gives me hope that in the Knight's book you can switch weapons around.
That'd be cool.
Which would be
really cool.
Which would be super cool. But yeah, just the image of like just this giant flamer being held in a Thunderstrike gauntlet is kind of stuck with me now. But yeah, aside from that, literally nothing. It's been super boring. And you know what, Danny? I lied. We're not going to switch to Innis right now before we go and talk to Val of every podcast fame. We are going to listen to my least favorite ad, the BCP ad. And then of just a phenomenal product, which I fully endorse and should be used for all events, large and small, to make pairings and results easier. And then when we come back, we'll be back with the famed Val Heffelfinger to try and talk about something, but mostly get sidetracked. It was a really fun interview, though. We had a lot of fun with him.
It was.
And we'll definitely get him back to not talk about 40K, because that's where most of the fun came from. But... we'll be right back after this.
Dude, I'm the best. I took first place at another tournament.
First off, stop with the thunder and lightning. You don't impress me. And second, let me check out the BCP rankings. And I don't see you on there.
What?
Your TO needs to download the Best Coast Pairings app and run events on it. After the event, the results are uploaded into BCP rankings, and the best part, it's easy and free.
But I play multiple game systems.
No big deal. The BCP app can be used for any game. A ton of events every weekend are using it, from major international tournaments to local stores. And now that it's available on Android devices, you're going to have some serious competition.
There can be only one.
BCP Rankings is a fun and exciting way to measure how you or your team stack up. No matter what you play, your score goes to an overall ranking. Or compete to be the best in a game, a circuit, a region, or the world.
Download the app or visit www.bestcoastpairings.com for more info.
Best Coast Pairings.
Are you the best?
Well, we're back, and we've missed like 20, 25 minutes of like quality shit talk and jokes. We had a great whatever we just did, and we are back with Val.
John, we talked about our hobby, dude. Come on,
that's right.
The order these
that's right.
Going.
I absolutely write out detailed show notes. I wrote show notes.
Show order, guys, like that is just. This is a well-oiled machine.
It is.
Did you guys go to the Carl Tuttle podcasting seminar?
I did. Well, actually, when we started this, the first thing we did, like Ted and I, when we started the podcast like 5 years ago, was email Carl. Be like, "Hello, sir. How are you?"
I like that was long ago enough that was the first mode that you went with.
Yeah, and
I picked up the phone and I said to the operator, "Give me Carl Tuttle.
Connect me to Tuttle. I want to talk about Forge World books."
Those were excellent episodes.
They were really good. So, and that's something like Independent Characters. They did like really amazing in-depth reviews of the Forge World books, and then it started declining a little bit. Well, not declining. It changed. It matured.
Yeah.
And
is this because you've never been invited to the Astronomicon?
Always. Well, I'm very vindictive of everywhere I've not been invited. So, like, I feel the same way about Phoenix, Arizona, Tempe, Arizona,
those fat cats in Sedona,
also indoors, in
Salt Lake City, Utah. Very mad at those people. Guadalajara, Mexico.
I got to interview Carl for the Nova Charitable Foundation Streamathon. And it was like the day after someone drove through his house. Like there was this horrible thing that happened.
What?
Yeah, like I don't know like someone, I don't know if it was, I honestly don't know the circumstances, but someone sort of plowed into the side of his house where his
Warhammer game room is.
Where's Warhammer Palace is. And so and then COVID happened and was happening. And so it was, kind of took the bounce out of his step. He's on hiatus again right now.
Yeah. Oh, excited when he comes back.
He's got a huge hole in his house.
And his heart. I don't know if that last part is true. God, I hope it's not true.
Yeah, no. But I think he's there's a cadre of very long running podcasts. They all seem to be West Coasters. Maybe it's something. And Canhammer's super old.
Yep.
Might be the oldest actually. And then there's also somehow my boys, Robo Ed and Blake Gaskins, Big Nasty B, Life After the Cover Save. Has anyone else listened to that show? I feel like I'm the only guy who listens to it anymore.
I listened to it. I told the story last episode of my introduction to those guys when I was very, very drunk at LVO 2018, and they were working the like the badge table, like handing out badges. And I'm going up and being like, "Hey, my name's this. Where is my badge?" Da-da-da. And like the guy's like, "Dude, you're spitting on me." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'm really drunk." But then like refused to stop spitting. Like just it was not happening. And I've never seen anyone look so sad to be where they are and happy to be where they are at the same time.
That sounds like it was probably Ed. I feel.
Yeah,
I feel like
that was
Blake. Yeah,
I'm glad you were able to channel your inner camel, though, John, and really get to know him better.
That was the inner goat of just spitting.
Okay. Do goats spit? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm guessing. Where's that a llama?
A llama spit, yeah.
Yeah.
And alpacas.
What character in the animated feature Aladdin gets briefly turned into a llama or a camel? That's the Emperor's New Groove.
Was the
Emperor's New Groove? Someone gets turned into a llama.
I'm pretty sure Apu gets turned into a camel at some point.
Yeah.
The monkey.
Oh no, he gets turned into an elephant.
I guess there's been a lot
of.
That's
right. It was an elephant.
What do you call that when you turn an animal into a different kind of animal?
Transmogrification.
Both anthropomorphic. That's trippy.
Yeah.
So anywho, I've already derailed us 5 or 6 times.
You're all good.
We got Val on.
Welcome to the Val Heffelfinger ADHD podcast. I'm really happy to play Warhammer.
Yeah. And that's about all we can talk about Warhammer at this point. No, but I mean, something you did mention at the start here, which is why you brought you on. There's a couple of like real old podcasts. So you have like Life After the Cover Save. You have like independent characters, Signals from the Front Lines, and the thousands of episodes now. But there's been like a gigantic community growth over the last 5 years, which you've kind of seen from its genesis from early days, or I think Danny and I were talking about this last episode, where you would show up at a tournament with your entire army, look at what everyone else was bringing, and then tailor your list to that, to kind of like the more modern iteration. Justin does that. That was like my very first tournament experience. I brought orcs to like a 6th edition tournament. This was like pre-ITC. And like I saw Justin just sort of looking around and just like trying to look at everyone's armies. Then he went out to his car and came back with like 3 Satans and a couple of Riptides. Just great times.
God, 6th edition was awesome. I knew it was going to be salty as soon as you said that.
It was good times.
So I wandered back in from the cold about midway into 7th edition. I believe it was the swinging summer of 2015. Was when I was like, sweetheart, I'm just gonna like buy a couple toys. You know, I really want to just paint some models. You know, it's nothing weird. It's not like I'm gonna be one of those convention guys. Just gonna paint a couple minis. It's normal. I'm sure some of your other friends are into this. And then like 1 year later, I was at the LVO. So.
Did you also tell her it would only be one army? I told my wife it would only be one army. Just a couple models here and there. It's kind of funny that like my early years in Warhammer were it was the lengths that like I think a more stereotypical male would go through to conceal an affair or second marriage. Like I was just because I felt like I needed to conceal my voracious appetite for the minis, and I did quite a good job. In fact, I created a side business. I was heavily involved in buying and selling minis. I paid for most of the bulk of the collection just by flipping lots. Because in those days, the game was out of fashion. I used a little investment world principle known as arbitrage. So I would buy up lots of out of print Forge World and stuff, and like sell it to lonely people in Japan. Paid for a lot. You're still talking about miniatures, right? Not articles of clothing. Just
well,
sure.
if they ask for, some
Fresh
stinky
resin
underwear in
panties.
the box too, why not? Why not?
Stinky underwear, a signed picture. Yeah.
This was long before I reached podcast fame.
Oh man! Did you two also sit in your car before entering the house, returning from the game store, slowly peeling off the price stickers on front of the box?
It wasn't really the price or the spend, because again, I justified all that by literally starting a business to pay for it, which is just the levels of psychosis we all go through to do this very bizarre thing. Everyone goes through various versions of it to make it make sense. So no, I never really concealed things like that, but there were a lot of boxes moving around that were unexplained. That's basically all I would say. And I had a closet. Like my stuff was packed in the closet, deep in there.
Oh yeah,
to the rafters by the end of it all. And then I had.
So you'd say you were pretty deep in the closet by that point in time.
Super closeted. Well, I in fact so deep in the closet that I invented an entirely side persona. That it's online has essentially replaced my actual self. Like, I don't go on any of my actual social media anymore. So my high school friends probably think I'm dead.
Is it better being dead or being internationally known for playing Warhammer? Like when like if you see a couple of your old high school friends, they come up to you and like, oh hey, how's it going? And then you have a bunch of like nerds with like trays going, hey Val, and they're like, you want to tell us something there?
So there's something that's very, very true, is that there's nothing less interesting to someone else than your hobby, unless they happen to share it. But in general, like, no one gives a shit what you do in your free time. Like, they don't care. They're waiting for their turn to talk most. So like, oh, you play with toy soldiers, cool. Anyway, so I was blah 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 blah. It's just, if they're not interested, they move on. No one's holding anything against anyone. Everyone does something weird to fill the time until their inevitable end.
So I was going to say, so how did you make that jump? So you started buying stuff. You were starting kind of international miniature distribution, shipping, trading, containers full of minis into Australia, avoiding import taxes, which I would watch that show.
Import-export business.
Yeah. I would watch that show of like a shit.
All export. Because it's like you gotta sell to where the Canadian dollar is at a discount. So like selling to the United States was huge. It was great. Like I could almost buy retail stuff because of the way that the way that the GW does its retail pricing, which is interesting. I
saw a thread about that you commented on.
Oh, did you?
On Facebook a while ago. Yeah, and it made me laugh pretty hard. Those guys were very negative on your opinion.
So here's the thing. I did swing incredibly negative, and I was giving Games Workshop pretty much no credit whatsoever, which is probably too extreme on the wrong side of things. However, I also don't think that they have a particularly well thought out strategy if this is being done on purpose. So that was basically the moral of the story. But I did tell the guy who actually did the job that he didn't know what he was talking about. And at that point, I was like, I am the problem. And so I had to stop. And in fact, I left that forum entirely because that is a cesspool of comments and awfulness. I don't go to any of the tragedy of the commons is just always demonstrated at any like broad topic Warhammer Facebook group.
I was going to say that doesn't narrow down a lot of Warhammer Facebook groups of toxicness and false opinions.
I don't know. Some of them are better than others.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
You were trying to get me to talk about something.
Yeah. When did you make the switch? So you're a player, importer, exporter, and then you started a podcast, started appearing on podcasts, and started becoming a quote unquote personality. Not
quite there. So like, because I was I'm a deeply closeted Warhammer player, and also there's just not a lot of us around, right? We're pretty much unicorns. I had some friends that played, and I was developing sort of a local friend group. Toronto's weird too, because like our real estate's really expensive. So like in the downtown where I live, no one, like no game store can have like 1,000 square feet of tables or whatever, and so there's just not really a lot of places to play. So I got into podcasts because those are friends that are always with you, and they're always happy to talk about Warhammer. It's a bit of a one-sided conversation, but nonetheless, I just got degenerately into podcasts. Even bravely soldiered through the depths of depression of about 7th edition on this show. And I tended to find that there was just a lot of saltiness out there and a lot of sadness, a lot of upsetness. This is actually a good segue to the actual topic. A lot of upsetness about, the state the Games Workshop was in, except for the tournament stuff. There was this ray of sunshine known as Reese Richard Robbins and the greatest Warhammer player ever, Frankie Giampapa. And those guys, for some reason, did 2 podcasts a week, which is hilarious. And they just had a good attitude about stuff, and they were excited, and they were always I felt that they were very proactive. I loved how they were very, they didn't have any authority, and yet they somehow tricked a lot of really opinionated, shitty people into listening to them. Which was really great by using points. The social engineering that was the ITC was actually quite awesome and remarkable, and I loved watching that happen. So those guys were in my ear a lot, basically, and so I was like, I gotta get to a tournament then. And I looked around my local scene for tournaments, discovered that there weren't many, and then I also discovered just how taboo tournaments were then. This is only 6 years ago, but in the Warhammer world, you want to play in a tournament? Oh my God, you're cheesy. Oh, you're cheese. That's cheese. You're a cheesemonger. I was like, geez, man, guys, come on, we can play this game. What? And no one would do ITC points because the ITC was those are competitive players, man. You don't want to be like those guys. And so I just started hitting up game stores that I had no intention of ever visiting in my area. And being like, hey, you got a tournament coming up next week. Are you guys doing ITC points? And they'd be like, no, we're not doing ITC points. I'm like, you guys should probably do ITC points. And then slowly they did. They started using ITC points, and then some tournaments started to be run more and more and more. And I was involved in one of the first attempts at a GT that I knew of in my time. That was an actual competitive GT. Probably, I guess that was 2017. It was the first year of 8th edition. Anyway, so after that first year, I wound up going to LVO. I go to a couple. I go to I go to something called the Capital City Bloodbath in Ottawa. In October of that year, I went to the Michigan GT, which is in Michigan. And then I went to the Glass City GT, where I witnessed Aaron Aliong playing Josh Death on the top table. Which was super special. My final round opponent at the Michigan GT is a hopefully lifelong friend, Mr. Stephen Pampreen, and he shared his grandma's cookies with me, and we had just the most wholesome time.
Oh, that's nice.
And then I went to the LVO, and it was pretty much game over. And then I just continued doing events all through that year. And then I was also, because I have strong opinions and I'm loud all the time, I was messaging a lot of the people who made these podcasts that I was constantly listening to and starting conversations with them and talking to them. And so one night when Pablo was lonely and had no one to talk to, he called me up after I had, by default, won the Warzone Atlanta.
Great.
Oh, yeah. That was the first time I had seen you on anything. I think I listened to that podcast.
So you said that. By default. How do you win by default?
Sorry, my baby. Nope.
No, that's my baby. Yeah.
Oh. I won by default because one, they at that time awarded the ITC points were awarded to their overall winner, because Warzone Atlanta will tell you that they don't have one winner. They have a series. They have a bunch of winners. They have a best sports. They have an overall. They have a best general, etc.
Yeah.
So I had come in second by a hair on overall. So I had placed second in this GT, which was a major. So, but then my friend Andrew Whitaker, he did something weird. I can't remember what it was. He used a relic that he wasn't allowed to, and it was important. I think he was maybe using the Lost Cadia or something. He was using something that really gave him an edge that he wasn't allowed to be using. And so the 40K mob demanded blood, and so he forfeited. He kept his title apparently, like so he still has his trophy, but
Forfeited
lost the
his
ITC
lands.
points.
Oh,
he
ITC points.
He lost the ITC points, which I gladly took, and I've been claiming to be the winner ever since.
Prove it. It's on paper.
Kind of. I don't know. So that put me at that moment in the lead for best orcs that year, which is hilarious. I have no business being anywhere near the top of any ranking. So I had, for like a brief moment in the sun, I had like some credibility, and then I went to the LVO and I lost immediately to Alex McDougall, who was a very good Tyranid player, and was playing Warriors. And I got to the table, and I was like, idiots got Warriors. And then I lost employment, and then I just completely screwed the pooch. So I think that's kind of a bit of a story arc for you, for where I came from.
I think my favorite part of a tournament is after you win your first round, and for a brief, glorious minute, you are on top of the entire tournament. And then everyone else's scores get added in, and you're back to where you should be. But for that brief moment, you're number one.
The absolute best version of that is when they first put the ITC rankings up. And it's just like whoever won an RTT that weekend.
Oh yeah,
up there with all the glory. Like that's just wonderful. I love that.
I took a screenshot. We played an RTT first weekend a couple of years ago, and I was in the top 10, and I was laughing all the way during dinner, and then a bunch of other scores got added, and I got kicked out almost immediately.
Well, hey, at least you were in the right place to get the screenshot, right?
That's right.
You have a screenshot.
You know what though, Val? Don't discount yourself, man. Getting second place at a GT that's a big deal.
Well, so I wasn't in second place, really. I was second overall. So that
but overall is,
and
I don't know,
overall is great. I had a commission painted army, and I gave all of my opponents maple syrup. So
I hope it was in a bottle and not just handfuls of just
it was shaped. Yeah, here, have it. Everyone had to check. No, but like everyone got a gift that I bought at duty free on my way down. And I didn't paint my own army, and I guess I might have been somewhat fun to play. Maybe. I definitely pressured Adam Abramowitz into voting me for best general. For favorite opponent.
The irony of that is palpable.
I often say that this is one of my deepest Warhammer regrets. Because it was not fair. And but anyway, so I am the reason why overall scores are arbitrary and dumb. And I have nothing else to say. I did not deserve that. But
second,
it was fun and hilarious.
Oh, I was gonna say you must have been fun to play if you ran over Gulliman with Peaches, and he didn't get back up, right?
No, he did not get back up with a reroll. Yeah, it was glorious. This was easily the most glorious moment of my 40K life. But that's an example. For me, essentially, I can go at a GT 3-0. I have never gone 4-0 because that's usually going to be top table or near it. I've sniffed top table twice last year. That was the closest I've been in. I've been in sort of a spot where I felt like I had a winnable game, and I lost in both cases.
Sure.
And at the LVO, I've gone 3-0 at least once, and I shit talked Naden. After day one, that was great.
Yeah,
being able to be like, yo, what are you at? There's a 3-0. I'm like, yeah, I'm at 3-0. What's up?
Yeah, you're my bracket, bitch.
But yeah, as soon as I'm playing actual good play, like people who work at it, and that's so many more people nowadays. Again, getting us back to the kind of people. People make fun of the coaching services and stuff, but if you're really into golf, and I've known a lot of people who love golf a lot, and I don't think they're nearly as into golf as the average Warhammer player likes Warhammer. Those people will go for golf lessons. So I have nothing against people who try to get better at this and seek good advice to do it, except for the fact that I can't win RTTs anymore. And that sucks.
Until the end, I was going to be this is culminating in if you go to Art of War and use promo code VAL for your coaching service.
No. This is my hobby and their job. It's very different.
Dude, I haven't won an RTT in more than a year.
I mean, how many have you taken part in, though?
like 5 or 6.
Oh,
You realize that most people haven't been to an RTT in literally a year.
Well, fair.
and the only reason that
I don't know if
wouldn't,
you're aware of this in Alaska, but down here, there's been a bit of a snafu.
and the only reason I won ours, Danny, was because I managed to submarine under you, and give you the much harder matchups throughout that entire thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's my wife's move, too.
Oh yeah, submarine to avoid. Oh man,
Go deep, go dark.
So yeah, we've gone from a place where like GW released its weekly White Dwarf, which was just average pictures of models that were coming out.
What a hilarious anecdote! Yes,
with Warhammer Visions, the rest of White Dwarf. That's like a DLC for White Dwarf. That was Warhammer Visions.
you know what? I think people really like White Dwarfs, so why don't we
take all the good parts out?
Sell more White Dwarfs. That's probably how it went.
That's exactly that board meeting, and you had that accent down like perfectly. You been, hanging out with Ross.
It's like I was there.
Yeah,
like I was there.
To like suddenly a couple of editions later, Warhammer community launches, and we're having like daily articles, updates, community feedback, all that other kind of stuff. What's in your mind the growth of the community? Why is it at the place where it is now? Was it simply kind of a thing where GW is like, well, shit, people stop buying our stuff now? Or is it kind of the rise of podcasters, content creators, and kind of the competitive scene in general that's really pushed up this interaction?
I think there's a confluence of factors. How's that for a word used on this podcast?
Oh,
confluence.
Man. That's going to be fun. We got to give all of our listeners a 20-second break to Google what that word means.
Thanks, Val. You really slowed down our flow here.
Confluence. And the first and foremost being the much ballyhooed and probably overhyped ouster of one Kirby, who was the CEO of Games Workshop for many, many years, who decried. He's known for saying things like people don't actually play games. That's where a lot of where a model manufacturer philosophy came from. And also he was responsible for a lot of the extreme cost-cutting measures that, essentially, the envelope was starting to get light. So rather than innovating and improving their product, they just cut costs because that made sure that they were still paying out to their shareholders, which at that point I think were just pretty much former owners who used it as their retirement fund. I am speculating wildly here, but nonetheless, they definitely focused on controlling costs rather than improving quality and innovating.
I think they got rid of like a lot of tenured people as well to kind of save payroll costs. They
eliminated a lot of local distribution. Canada, for example, used to have its own sort of corporate HQ. I think they did that elsewhere as well. They consolidated.
We had in the United States, we had 4 different distribution centers at one point in time when I was working as a store manager.
Yeah. Well, you're former GW. There's so many.
No, not sorry, independent realtor. I ran a game store. Yeah.
But so yeah, this is all happening, I guess, in the early 2010s or even earlier than that. This is when I'm not paying attention. I pieced this together after the fact.
No, I think
it was in the early 2010s because I stopped in 2009.
And I think some of this comes from the fact that, like, from 2000 to 2009, they made that deal with New Line for Lord of the Rings games, saw the money just roll in the whole time. And then, of course, when they stopped making Lord of the Rings movies, people stopped giving a shit about the system. For the most part. Sorry, Russell, I know you still love it.
People who like that game like it a lot. If you go by a Lord of the Rings tournament that's like one of the smaller events at a bigger tournament you're at, and you linger too long to look at like Smog or something, they are going to hit you up like an evangelical on the bus. They are going to tell you the good news about Lord of the Rings. So be careful out there, folks. You might wind up
just know your Arkenstone facts. That's
a little Merry and a little Pippin, a little tree beard, some ants. But anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, just so Games Workshop essentially was gutted by itself to clearly try and improve top line numbers. So essentially, like I said, you can either make more money or you can spend less money. They chose to spend less money and also really turn the screws hard on pricing, all that kind of stuff. So Games Workshop model in those days were to get a really dedicated group of customers and get as much out of them as they possibly could. And that was blatantly obvious, right? So like the amount of money that like the average, like each store, like Games Workshop has done a couple miracles. One of which is they've maintained brick and mortar. And the another one is they're a successful book publisher in the year 2021. But they depended on very small groups of customers that would like keep these stores up, and that's why they went to that one manager system too as well. Is that keeping those lights on for as little as possible, ruin someone's life, but at least maximize the profit coming out of that store. So it's an awful business model. It's certainly not sustainable. It's kind of like stuff you saw. I don't know, poorly run companies reacting terribly to the internet do all over the place. And that's kind of like, that's why, like, if you look at articles from these days, there's like, there'd be articles about like, is Britney Spears going to make it this weekend? And also is Games Workshop going to go out of business? Like there's just a Games Workshop death watch. Everyone expected it to get taken over. It was just really awful. And the customers, if you go back and read the forums, are really upset, and they love to hate it. Like that was it. Like everyone was a spurned lover, and it was just a really weird thing that like all these people both simultaneously loved the hell out of this thing, but hated it so much. And I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but that sets the scene for when out of nowhere it felt Warhammer Community comes out. Because Games Workshop had left the scene, like left the internet, also somewhere in the early 2010s. You can still find, I don't know if you still can, but a few years ago, you could go on YouTube and you could see their original YouTube attempt. So they had a channel that I assume was started by someone who no longer works there, so they don't have the password to like turn it off. But like you can see their hype video for the Stompa when it was originally released. You can see like the last time the Dark Eldar were released, and the humor and the format all the same, lower production value. It's like done on like a Handycam, but it's all very similar to the style that they've been doing now.
Well, and now
I'm
looking
a
up
hilarious relic.
And now I'm looking up GW Stompa video YouTube.
Games, I think it's 2013, maybe 2010, 2013, somewhere in there. But anyway, so they leave the internet, like they just withdraw from talking to their customers. And then so Warhammer Community comes out. There were like I talked about Canhammer earlier. There was a guy on there called Logan who is like the epitome of the upset, really spurned lover. And I didn't realize that it's because those guys were fantasy players and their game had been blown up and they were forced to play 40K at this point. I didn't know that was what was going on. They were all just really upset that their favorite thing was no longer existed. Because good job, Games Workshop.
Yeah, I feel their pain immensely. That's when I used to listen to Canhammer most, was when they did fantasy content, because that was my game as well.
I feel like the 40K scene is built on the bones of fantasy tournament players.
Dude, there's like fantasy tournaments at the end of its life were hopping. They had like 600 or 700 plus person tournaments every single year in the United States. Yeah, like around the country in various different places. Like it was a lot bigger than 40K at that point in time for those kind of events. Just 40K just had Adepticon pretty much.
And I remember when I was a kid, that was the rep that it had. Like the serious game was fantasy. Like if you wanted to play, tactics, you played fantasy. If you wanted to have a good time, you dialed up old 40K.
The checker and chess kind of comparison came up quite a bit. Yeah. I remember.
That was my first experience with hobby snobbery, which is an institution of the game. So anyway, what am I getting into? Oh yes, the arrival of Warhammer Community and the change in format. That is actually when Warhammer Community showed up. Logan on Canhammer didn't believe it was actually Games Workshop. That is the level of like distrust and upsetness that people had, is that they couldn't believe that Games Workshop actually set up a Facebook page of all things.
Yeah, because they were like lights out before that, right? There was like no Facebook, there was no comments.
Yep.
It was just my last rant was you were just tuned out. and just hearing static.
Absolutely. That's what I do. It's the easiest way to go.
That's how John works.
Yeah.
I just painted a beautiful watercolor of the dark ages of,
and I
our
finger painted over it like a bitch.
I've said a couple of times that I'm a very bad speculator on like stonks, as the kids say these days. But I bought Games Workshop stock after Warhammer Community came out, and Games Workshop stock in that previous year had already doubled, because there was other stuff that was happening that was already sort of changing behind the scenes that was leading to more sales and all kinds of, like, they were releasing faster and you could tell stuff was on the move. But when they re-engaged with the community, I was like, damn, like this thing's going to pop off maybe, or it's already doubled and I'm a complete idiot, whatever. So I turned out to be lucky. Don't worry, everyone. I'm an idiot and I sold at a very poor point. So this is not a brag thing.
Not stonks.
But from there, they have like that. I know you can look up the stats on Warhammer Community, but it's millions and millions. I think it's like 4 million site visits in the last 6 months on the site that I was looking at for that measured traffic. So it's not insignificant. I mean, it's probably like 50 guys just refreshing it because we're weirdos. But
FAQ's got to drop.
You know, like, but like, so that is the thing, is that it really re-energized a lot of the people who just wanted to talk. You know, like there's somebody like, why won't you just talk to us? Like, come and help us. That's all I had to do. So and on like a house on fire now.
So what does it do for places now? I mean, I think the people who have like suffered the most would be like your Battle of Lost Souls, your Spiky Shits, places like that, where GW has kind of killed the middleman in that pretty much, and just started straight releasing their own news right away. And now those sites are kind of releasing weird cosplay videos instead.
I'm not a big consumer of bowls and the like, or like Fate. What was it, Fate 2012 or Fate 582?
When I got back into it in like 2014, 2015, I was on that site like daily.
Yeah, it was hot. But now they just, actually, the answer is most of those sites literally cut and paste the Warhammer Community articles and put them up.
Yeah, I know, because Spiky Bits copy pasted one of our videos onto their page and wrote it down. And
I mean,
I lost
Rob Bear, because
I lost a group vote because I wanted to change the thumbnail for the video that they stole to "fuck you, stop stealing our content," but I lost that vote.
I think if anything, like this is something too that I really appreciated in the ITC Frontline Gaming crew, is that they have always had like a growth mentality. So like the rising water lifts all boats type idea. And I really do think that the more eyeballs that are checking out Warhammer community probably means that those eyeballs are also reading all the stuff there and looking for something else to read. I think we're pretty voracious. If you look at the stats for like bowls and Spiky Bits, they're not in the multiple millions, but in their I think bowls is in the like a million visits. I think Goonhammer's in the hundreds of thousands, Spiky Bits in the hundreds of thousands. So there's a lot of traffic. But even for this, like when you consider the fact that, like, think of your life and how many times have you ran into somebody who also like even really knew what this was. Like 5 or 10 people for me, like it just very rarely did. It's like we're like unicorns, right? So the internet does a good job of bringing us together, and I think that's why the community likes to talk to itself so much.
Beautiful national animals of Scotland, unicorns. It's a true fact right there. That is the Scottish national animal, because we're nothing if not like annoying. But yeah, I think there was a lot of trepidation when they started the community site, like you said, because it was a complete 180 turn to where they were from before. And I think for me, it really hit home. It's like, oh shit, this actually might be something, was the Magnus reveal video. Where like the picture leaked on Fiat or somewhere like that of the new Magnus kit. And then GW released a video of them literally lifting it out of the trash and being like, oh, look, here this is.
That was a Rob Symes joint.
Oh, yeah.
that was one of his. It was him finding his. I don't think he was in the garbage can. I think it was the other guy in the garbage can. But yeah, like, and it was funny and it was tongue in cheek, and it wasn't because again, 2 years before, they wouldn't have been laughing and making a video. They would have been suing that person. Literally, would have been sending cease and desist orders.
Yeah.
So like, it's a complete. You're right. It's like a complete 180 in how they approach free marketing for and like just like people who so desperately want to talk and promote and convert more people into playing Warhammer. It's one of the most evangelical communities that exists. I've said evangelical twice. Going to retire it for the remainder of the show.
Okay, and yeah, let's give our listeners a pause to Google evangelical. I know we have a lot of Southern listeners. It'll be fine. They know what it is.
Proselytize? But anyway,
stop it.
You're making Danny feel dumb. You need to stop.
No, I know what he's saying. I just don't want our listeners to be.
He was like, I know what he's saying. I just don't want to be asked any questions about what it means.
No one's still listening. They have advanced.
Okay,
that's real fair.
I lost them like 5 minutes in. There's no way anyone's hanging in there through this.
I mean, I say that every episode, yet statistics say otherwise, and I have no idea why.
I'm there. I'm just grinding my teeth and just fucking and then I get to the end though eventually.
It's rage listening, but I mean, back to your point. I mean, I think it's really easy to be negative, and a lot of podcasts that have popped up kind of really lean into that. I know, like, we were super negative towards the middle because it's easy. And it's really hard to be positive and recognize positivity because people are much more comfortable being outraged at something than they are saying positive things. Like, I think even to this day, Danny, we get called shills because we like things
all the time,
which is bizarre. And people are like, you have to say nice things because you review their stuff. And I'm like, no, we've shat on them so hard for things, and it still happens. But yeah, I think we're starting to see a tide with content where, like, the more of the positivity is coming through, more of like the love of the hobby is coming through. It's kind of less of the salt, which is super nice to see.
Well, I mean, that's a direct result of the fact that they have engaged with their customers to a degree that is infinitely more than they were doing before. And also, they did it with humor. They did it with a significant amount of commitment. Right, so they've maintained all this stuff. They also, at the same time, so I remember, I think it was before Warhammer Community, that all of my TO friends on Facebook were just going for a vacation in the UK. Like it was like I remember Brant like going to London, and like Reese and Frankie, can't wait to see the UK. And I'm just like, why are all these guys going to England all of a sudden? And they were literally going over to set up the playtesting group. And shortly thereafter, we got the draft 7th edition FAQ, which was a clear. To me, it looked pretty clearly written by people heavily involved in writing the ITC FAQ, considering almost all of the rulings were dovetailing with those. So it looked to me like they were given sort of the, would you guys like to help type thing. I'm just, again, this is pure speculation, but it sure looked like they helped with the FAQ, and then they kind of got made. They went over and they got kissed the rings and signed the docs.
Came back with resin suits.
And like the level of humility that GW has taken as far as rules writing goes in this edition, like, or in last edition as well, like wherein there's been so many times where stuff has been super bad for the game and nothing has lasted really more than like 6 months of like being of the game being like not bad, because it's still not bad even when it's bad, right? Not like 7th edition. Like,
well, I mean, 7th had
pretty solid.
Like, 7th had its. I think 7th was, I don't know. I really liked it pretty much until Yanari. Yanari was my jump the shark. Like at that point, I was like, okay, there's really no point in it anymore. I literally just stopped. And I don't remember what I did with my time. Probably just waited impatiently.
Angrily wrote letters.
So yeah, like, I mean, there has to be some credit there. I mean, there's also a need, I think, to keep pushing, because I think there still is reluctance to truly lean into and invest in the word that is literally in their name in games. And I believe that games, there may be truth to the fact that, hobbyists are the majority, like people who just buy models and paint them and collect, and like those are like the large group of people. But anecdotally, anytime a model is good, you can't buy it for 4 months. There's a clear link between.
You mean 6 months?
6 months. Well, that's COVID time. But even, like when 8th edition dropped.
Well, no, I mean, so it's not a.
Oh, you're breaking up.
Oh, it's okay. There's two of us on the Alaskan internet at the same time.
Try again.
I'm not editing this, Danny, but you can say this again.
Wait, which thing? The 6 month anecdotal joke? Or
yes.
okay.
Yeah, I understand that reference now. Any more than 6 months, and it's not competitive anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was like Thunderfire cannons. By the time they came back in stock, it was over. It's funny. Their production, their factory is chasing the meta just as hard as we are. Like it's kind of funny in that regard.
I just imagine their factory is staffed by like one person who gets really pissed off. Be like, why is everyone buying fucking impulsors? Jesus, I'm gonna make these.
He's just got a Marby red hanging off the edge of his lip.
Little bowler hat, suspenders.
I'll tell you what, like now is the time to sell all your second, like if you want to get rid of some new in-box stuff, like the secondary market right now for GW is insane for stuff that's being chased by the meta.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, or just scour, like now all the like small town game shops have web carts because COVID. So like just go scour like small towns because I found 2 impulsors on the shelf of a smaller town outside of Toronto, like when I shouldn't have, just because I like check their web card.
Yeah, that's how I got my Lord Felsis after that got discontinued. As I just went around small town game shops with web cards and I had to mail it up.
Are you making fun of me, or is that real?
No, that's real. Like because the Lord Felsis is like the only Death Guard Lord of Contagion model who has the scythe. And then they're like, we're discontinuing him, and then obviously it's sold out everywhere. So I went on a mad search for it, and a game store in Arizona had one, and I bought it. So yeah, shop local, but also online, I guess. Support local business from far away.
Well, yeah, and they won't invite you into the state. So
no, they won't.
A nice thing that you did.
Tampa, Phoenix. All places that I have very large grudges against is my vindictive nature.
In the business, they call that a callback, guys.
That is. I appreciate that. It's
Where were we?
In the business.
The highest form of human. In the biz, we call that losing our place with a sequester.
Let's see. So we were talking about the things that GW did that really improved their customer relations. The last thing we touched on was the rules writing and the increase in the FAQs and everybody's trip to the UK.
Yes, everybody's trip to the UK, the FAQs. And like that was a sea change. Just the fact that they were paying attention to, like, we joke that it's the intern who writes the FAQ sometimes, but they put an intern on it. Like that's still some value.
Oh man, imagine being that guy where like it's your job and you're paid well to write these FAQs, and you go online to see how they're received, and all that anyone's fucking saying is you misspelt Tau. You're like, oh yeah, I know, thank you.
Well, and that's I think that's one of the things that really is kind of annoying, because I think they could save themselves basically all of the trouble that they get. There's always going to be negative reactions to the stuff that they release, or people who don't like an approach to rules or whatever. But the basic quality control stuff has always been there as a problem. It is something they have to know about. That they aren't good proofreaders, that they don't have good version control, that they don't work off of the same spreadsheet. They may not have spreadsheets. I don't know. Like there's stuff that they could do that from as an outsider, they could do, and it would prevent a lot of this angst and annoyance that that the community gets. Like Nathan with his is it one razor wing pigeon flock, or is it minimum 3 razor wing pigeon flocks? I don't know. There's kind of conflicting evidence on that. So, and that doesn't need to happen, right? They could, they're a big boy company. They can fix that. And I think that's why people get so mad, is because it's like, why? Like you can do better than this.
I think what's
why do
funny
we have
for
to buy a
me
book?
is that people believe the board are sitting there like this evil maniacal thing, be like, and then will release an app that crashes every time you try and scroll down on Plague Marine rules. That'll show those bastards for giving us $2 a month.
No, but I mean, it's maybe not the board, but there's a control somewhere that's saying, no, you can't, hire, you can't contract an actual development company for a few $1,000,000 to build the app properly, even though that would be 100% a massive driver of revenue for them. Like, they make their money, like, if they went to a subscription for rules, I fully believe that they would, like,
I would pay like
make
$20
a tremendous
a month
amount of money. Yeah, like, honestly, I don't know what the number is. Like, I don't, like, $20 easy, no problem. Like, and I gotta think that they would just be able to achieve a level, because people will pay for legitimate service rather than pirating. That is, I think, something that's been proven a lot. Like, the majority of people will. Some people will always pirate, but majority of people would love like a reasonable way to access this stuff. I'm off track.
No, you're good. There's no track. This is all field.
Yeah, we're just running. We're in between the trenches. Chariots of Fire's playing.
We're at like Versailles, 1916. We're good. Would you say so? Like you mentioned it before. Like competitive players are not the primary purchaser of GW product by a long shot, right? But would you put them down as probably the beta testers almost for the game, where they kind of break the rule set to the point where it makes it fun for your casual hobbyist?
I can't remember where I saw this, but it was essentially it affirmed sort of a thought I had already had, which is I think the competitive scene may not be the majority, but they are the influencers and they are the tastemakers, right? Yeah. And they, so whether or not you think you're competitive, and I see this in the casual local Toronto gaming club all the time, like, oh, we're not competitive players, and then they put down Street Fighter with combos and stuff that is like not cool in that context. Like, clearly you guys didn't talk about this. Like, you're just playing what you think is a really good list.
Right.
You may not know that it's not a good list, but like, that's what you're doing. And so I think like for me, like casual is kind of a dog whistle for not good at 40K. And I think those people are starting to have more resources to get better at 40K.
Oh man. That's a really good tag. I like that.
It's a hot take.
Yeah, it's a hot take. Casual equals bad. Val said it.
Yeah, I've had my worst games against quote unquote super casual players. Like almost always, I would say those have been my worst games of 40K. So yeah.
They don't. I think a lot of it is that it's like when something doesn't meet your expectations. I think it's the same reason people get mad at dice. Yep. You're emotionally invested in the outcome of something, doesn't meet your expectations. Someone took your cookie away. You're gonna probably, if you're wrapped up in that moment, if you're really invested in that thing, you might not have a good reaction to it. You might get sad or mean. Yeah. So I think that's kind of what happens. Or if you just really like cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really makes me want to take to games business cards for local counselors and therapists. So when you beat someone, that's a really good burn, is to give them the phone number for a local psychiatric help. Here, this will help you get over this.
I need you to make me some cards that just say like, here's like some Wambulance cards so that I can hand out to my opponents.
Just like come up with a character as a Wambulance chaser.
Yeah.
And going back to earlier, now they have the James Workshop character in Warhammer community who's like the big, like verbose, like, positive guy. I really want GW to do a Hamburglar style character now. who goes around like sneaking pictures of things and leaking information.
And then they finally get around to supporting the tournament scene, and they just have a grommet, like just like a swollen purple dude.
They call him like, they could call him Gore Lord Hames.
The banana grabber.
Not grommet, Grimace. Grommet is a cherished United Kingdom claymation icon.
If it was just a guy in a giant dog suit, that would be amazing.
Also, that might be a better bet.
And actually correct, as dogs can often grab miniatures and eat them. I've seen this before.
Yeah. So, and I think just getting back to like the function of the competitive environment, I think that's something that you see in other games, like especially Vig games. There are pro gamers out there. Well, most people aren't pro gamers. They might take cues from those guys about what's hot and what's cool, or like what a good technique might be. But, you know, they're probably just playing for fun for the most part and just need enough skill to have fun. I think that, again, is the thing. Is like, if you're really bad at this and you don't know why it sucks and you don't know why things aren't happening right, the play experience isn't that good. So you do need to get to a certain level of skill, I think, to have a good time.
Do you think like some of this, like, so there's a lot of negative reaction and kind of opinions of a lot of the better players, like your Nanavadis, your Sieglers, things like that. Does some of that come from people's almost underrating how the hobby is? Sort of like, this is just a beer and pretzel shitty table game. Haha, look at you. You think you're so good. And like an underlying jealousy thing, or not treating it like, because you have like pro Overwatch players, pro League of Legends players, and they're treated almost like revered athletes for what they're doing. Whereas Warhammer players, they're not treated so much. Like, jokes are made about line cutting, other weird things happen. And it's a different level.
In 1998, Andy Chambers pretty much ushered in the era of Grimdark. 40K went from being a really silly slapdick sort of satire of a dystopian future to a straight up dystopian future where you're gonna like the bad guys. And it went from not serious to super serious. That left the station. Everyone went on that ride, no problem. Like, people got super into the horse. There are 40K historians at this point who, are fans of history of the current game. But the game didn't do that. The game stayed toy soldiers in the minds of the creators. All right. So like, it got like everything around it got so much more serious, taken with a higher degree of fidelity. The game got left in the station for some reason, and it seems to be taboo to take the game as seriously as you would, a piece of lore or, a faction's backstory or something like that. Or your painting, like the skill that goes into highly competitive painters or even just highly skilled painters is a tremendous amount of effort and seriousness. And it's okay to be serious about that. It's only recently become okay to be serious about the game. And to me, I think that's a cultural thing that comes from the company itself. And it's that if there was a place where taking the game seriously was sort of forced on the company, it is from the community, quite literally. Like, they poached one of the biggest TOs that we had, Mike Brandt. He'll be their community guy and their global events coordinator. And, whenever all this COVID business is done, we'll see what he's going to get up to. If you follow their hirings board, as I do from time to time, you will have spotted things like, North American TO position. They're definitely getting ready to do stuff that's events and maybe tournament driven, which is cool. But something that wasn't happening before. So that culture, I think, will begin to shift, and there'll be a normalization of taking the game seriously. Because it's, to me, a little weird that, in this age of hyper fetishizing all manner of silly bullshit, I don't know if it was the same for you, but when I was a kid, it wasn't cool. Like, my parents didn't think it was a good thing to be really into sports. That was a waste of time. I don't know if as Americans this was ever a thing, but like, watching too much TV was a thing,
Yeah. As a British person, it was a thing.
Okay. Because these are not in line with, Protestant work ethic type values. They're not productive activities. These are leisure class activities. And I guess that maybe is where 40K comes from as a game, is that this is a leisure activity. It's not meant to be, competitive and serious. The Victorians didn't let you, like, their idea of competitive sport, like the amateur idea behind the Olympics was you literally showed up and you just went. So you didn't prepare for it. You just wanted all your natural skill, all your God-given ability on display. You did not train for the Olympics. That's what like true amateurism was. A lot of pulled hammies, and they were probably running in clogs. But like, you know what I mean? So like, there's this idea. I think there is a leisure class element to why the game is sneered at, and that I think There's those damn Americans again, bringing in all of their merit-based, skill-based perspective on things, ruining a good pastime.
Now I just want to see a tournament where it's just a bunch of people who show up on the day with like a box of random ass minis and be like, okay, got it, 1,000 points.
AOS.
Looks like I have Drukari and fucking dwarves. Cool.
Literally, they tried to do that. They literally invented that game. Age of Sigmar was that.
Oh, when you had points for having a silly mustache or singing or yelling.
There were no points.
Oh, it was bonuses.
That was a low blow, John. You don't have to make fun of that.
But you know, like when they thought, okay, we got a clean slate. Let's invent the best game we can. Let's just blue sky this thing. They came up with a game that was impossible to play competitively. You know, to play a pitch battle with. So that's interesting. So to me, that says like internally there, the culture is just different. And outside, when you create art and you release it into the world, and as artists and creators yourselves, you realize this. Once you release that into the world, it will be interpreted and used in ways that you did not anticipate and perhaps don't even approve of. And that is probably what happened to Warhammer 40K with respect to Games Workshop. And that's probably why they ran away from the internet, is because it was so divorced from what they wanted to do. Are you guys texting each other about my rambling at this point?
No, I think it looks like we just got comment bombed by Mini Wargaming again, which means I have 30 fucking comments to respond to.
Amazing. They flexing on you a little bit? What happened? Did you insult them?
Usually whenever Phil Glacial Geek goes on there, they mention us and they go to our most recent YouTube video and comment bomb, which great. It really helps the algorithm, but I feel compelled to reply to everyone.
Oh yeah. But I think the algorithm knows that you're trying too hard when you do that.
It does. It's like a high school girlfriend.
I think you have to reply to a select few. You can't reply to them all. It's too hot. You're too thirsty if you reply to everything.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, you don't want to give the full kung fu grip hand job, in response.
You want to give that soft
white
silk.
knuckler.
You gotta
just
give
a light, heavily lubed, just real good rub down.
Silk handkerchief of a rub.
Oh my. I just went places though for real that I've never thought of before. So I hope you guys like that. That was some free association. I saw colors. I saw I tasted the rainbow. It was crazy.
It's amazing.
So the community created competitive 40K, literally did in 7th edition.
Yep.
And forced them to support it.
Right.
Which is,
and that's ITC did that, right? ITC did that for the most part because they were able to bring together like an actual FAQ of issues that Games Workshop hadn't touched for years, and get them to more or less basically force them to accept this change to their game, right? And that's a huge step. That's a huge step.
Yeah, they forced them to pay attention to it, right? And I don't know that. Because the original playtesters were all essentially the people who had the most skin in the game.
Yep.
So they were all the leaders of the big American and maybe one British tournament. But anyway, so the Adepticon guys were playtesters originally. Brant and some of his local crew were playtesters. Reese and Frankie and some of their crew were playtesters. So that's like the first cabal because they had a vested interest in the success of that game. So it wasn't just ITC that, especially once they were off and running, but it did seem like it heavily influenced a lot of their rulings and decisions.
Yeah,
because the Adepticon and Nova were of the opinion that you play it as it lies. So
right.
They were of the opinion that this, Moses wrote these friggin' rules, carved them into these tablets for a reason. We're following the harshest interpretation. Meanwhile, Reese is like, why? Why? And that was what I was yelling all the time. Because you get filthy casuals who are like, you're playing house rules. I'm like, yeah, you're casual. This is like a game that's gonna make you way less mad.
Yeah. I was super resistant to ITC when it first came out. I'm like, who are they to tell me how to play this game, right? But then
tread on me.
Right, exactly. Full on American,
shooting guns in the air.
I'm drinking a beer and eating a ribeye, and But then, like, it got to the point where, all right, so what's the consensus on all this different stuff? It's way easier for us to just run events and run them as ITC events so that we all have this shared kind of experience and what our expectations are before the game starts, and I don't have to go over every little thing with my opponent.
But also, are you going to run the ETC or the Adepticon FAQs? Like, those were harsh, man. Like, they were harsh. Like, they didn't like the like there was a spell that came out for a couple of them that came up for Space Marines towards the end. Like the one where you could move the terrain and surf something across the table, Geomancy. There was another one that was like a double move or like a teleport and charge move. It was like a deep strike charge type thing that just wasn't done in that edition.
No,
and the ITC was just like, no, you can't do that, guys. It's just going to make everyone really sad. We're not doing this. And meanwhile,
right?
And,
like
and they made stomps less. They made what was that? They did a bunch of things that just took the hardest, evilest edges off the game. And to me, I was just always so perplexed as to what. Like, do you really think that they actually understood these interactions? Like, if they did understand them, they probably would have explained it by now. Anyway, but yeah, so the competitive scene, I think, coming back around to it, really forced that, and it has forced the game out of garages. It's forced the game, onto the streets, onto YouTube.
Real dangerous there.
And,
exactly where I want it, in the streets.
But like GTs, like you were talking about fantasy, how amazing it was that there were 600 or 700 person events. This is actually still pretty impressive, to be honest with you. But they're
impressive.
There probably wouldn't have been, another 200 or 300 GT sized events,
for sure. For sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Who knows? And an untold amount of RTTs, right? So, like, that's the thing that's happened is like it has just made the game very vibrant, and pretty much everywhere, English is spoken, and actually in a lot of places where it's not spoken, that like the scene is picking up, driven by the fact that. And this is the zeitgeist part, I think, of why now, is that so much of our stuff is disassociated. There aren't as many common places to go. You can't just go chill at the mall because Kirby closed that Games Workshop. You have to, we're very, I think humans are social creatures and we crave social contact. And, if you're a 30-something-year-old white male, this is as good as it gets, really. And I think that's probably what really drives that scene is like you go there and you actually meet people that you like and who share this weird interest and have a lot, and you have a ton, there are stakes involved, even if you have no ability to win it. Maybe you saw one of the guys on the internet, you listen to their podcast, it's just cool. There's just shit always happening.
Bag yourself a rhino.
Bag yourself a rhino. Hey, play me.
Val, we've gone well over time. I want to thank you for having you on.
I'm making you edit. I'm going to make you edit, bud.
Fuck knows, this is going to be a long episode. Watch it.
It's a nosebleeder.
I'm not going to...
You're wrapping up, but I'm not.
I'm not going to steal any people. I'm not going to steal any people's pleasure and reduce any of this content and great things. Val, if people want more of you, where can they find you? Like personal address, home phone number?
I have very little things. I'm dox myself. I have very little things to promote show-wise. Pete and I have, for the entire pandemic, next Tuesday at noon BST, which is
3 a.m. Alaska time.
Alaskan time?
Yep. I know because I've had to make several UK phone calls this week, and it's really early.
We do the 40K adjacent show, which is where I've learned this technique of talking about nothing in circles for about an hour.
Hour 6.
If you're into that, come check out the 40K adjacent show. You can get that on the Honest Wargamer. Something I would like to touch on before you awkwardly segue to whatever your next segment is.
Do it.
I'm very passionate about a Kickstarter that is probably going to be revealed next week to do with an app called Rifle Ruler. You guys ever heard of it?
I have the premium subscription to it.
Oh, very good, sir.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a fantastic gaming aid.
You also thought it was super neat. Well, when I saw it, I thought that might be a bit awkward to measure stuff on tables, but I think it would be a game changer if there was a desktop version of it that streamers could use. And for those of you who don't know what Rifle Ruler is, it's an AR app which will project, graphics and things right onto the tabletop, so it looks like you're playing with holograms. It's cool, but also it gives you to the millimeter measurements. So if you were able to, if streamers, for example, covering, I don't know, live tournaments and events had access to this tool, it opens up a lot of things for being able to explain the action and also show the action on screen. Because I think I'm really obsessed right now with how do you make 40K watchable? Because there are so many hot takes out there about how it's impossible. And fuck those guys. So we're going to do it. I think some technology is going to help. And so if you could, next week, you can check out the Rifle Ruler Kickstarter. We're trying to raise $8,000 US to pay for development costs, which it's a lot of individual money. As a community, I think it's pretty achievable. And I think, honestly, I legitimately believe that this is something that opens up a lot of opportunities for innovation and for people to show the game in a different way.
And if every Mob Rules listener donated only $4,000, we would hit our goal of $8,000.
Accurate.
Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of support from some big time streamers. Hopefully I can actually get them to support us in public. So my hope is that, those streamers contribute, and also their audiences might want to have this technology available because it'll improve the viewing experience. But we all know that 40K players are superstitious and suspicious of technology and change. So we'll see how this goes over.
You should just start a rival Kickstarter where you donate money to quote unquote not build this device that'll help things, and then just use that money to pay for it. Yeah.
Now you got it. So yeah, it's good. I even think table bossing, for example, with it. You could do it remotely. You could judge, you could have, if you had your top 10 tables with an overhead cam, you could have a cabal of remote judges just watching the feed, checking up on measurements,
sitting on segways.
You don't need to have guys who can travel all over the planet to coach 40K games. You can give them this tool and a camera feed, and they can watch from wherever the hell they are.
Nice.
So
that's pretty cool.
I think there's lots you can do with it that advance the game. So please, if you can, swing by Kickstarter, Rifle Ruler. You can click to follow it right now, and it'll give you an alert when it goes live. And if this is published in the future when it's already live, please kick in what you can.
Danny, what else you got for Val while we have you here, so I don't again cut you off before you want to say things?
I'm done with him.
Oh, fair. Okay, we're done with you.
Take him away.
Man. That was, dude. What a great conversation.
Yeah.
And so many insights. It's super.
And joke's on you. We're gonna ask you back for more speculative bullshit in the future,
buddy. You know what? I'm all about speculative bullshit. I don't even need a topic sentence.
Hell yeah.
I will just interpret.
Perfect.
You can give me a color.
We'll do a 40K adjacent preview show, or the 40K adjacent training, with training wheels, because we are nowhere near as quality as Robbie, Val, and Falcon, who have that.
I feel like we're a podcaster's show. I feel like 100 people listen to us, but they all have podcasts.
So that's literally where we are as a podcast. If I'm being real with you, we're like, oh, okay, it's cool. But it seems to be a lot of podcasters listen to us. But then again, right now that's a third of the player base, so that doesn't really say much.
That's probably where most listeners are.
Yeah, we're getting ready for that revival of the Overlords. Val, it's been a pleasure. We will catch up with you later.
Welcome everybody to Lo-Fi Beats to Get Good To. I'm Innes, and I'm here again this week to talk to you about Killing Your Darlings. Kill Your Darlings is a literary device that means taking out anything that doesn't directly advance your story in writing. So you might have a plot point that's just really key to your personal love, but one that doesn't necessarily help the story, or a character that does the same. A good example would be the casino plot in Star Wars 8, where, yeah, it's kind of fun, but it doesn't really do anything for the overall plot, and it kind of just is overall negative to the thing. But you could easily see how that might have been the director's favourite part of the film, and that's how it stays in. So how we can apply that to 40k is that in order to really level up your gameplay, you need to be a bit brutal with yourself. It's very easy to fall into a pattern of, say for me personally, I absolutely love playing with Gene Stealers, especially Kraken Gene Stealers with this one, but I think it's incredible fun, but ultimately it just doesn't hold up in 9th edition. And if I was more inclined, I might still be playing that just because it's what I personally have the most fun playing. But because ultimately in my heart I'm a competitor, I've put that to the wayside. I have 120 Gene Stealers that don't see the table. And as much as that makes me sad because I don't get to play it, it definitely helps my win rate. And it's something that you'll see a lot of top level competitive players do, is that they won't necessarily play their favourite army or their favourite unit in that army just because it's not competitive enough. And killing your darlings in a 40k sense really does just mean having a hard look at whether the choices you're making in list design and gameplay are optimal, or if you're doing it because it's just something that you like to do. So examples might be, you might really love going for wraps and traps in combat, and you try to find a situation where you can use it. Or you might have a favourite stratagem that you always go for, like you always double shoot your obliterators when you drop them in, and there's 2 kill your darlings there. You need to remove the spending CP on obliterators and then also the obliterators. You should do both of those things. 40k is very much a game of resource management, and if you are hamstringing yourself because of play patterns and things that you enjoy, it's important to understand that that's not optimal. And that doesn't mean that you can't do it. You can certainly work around limitations. You see people going for best in factions all the time. A player might go for a best in faction in a faction that just isn't very good right now. And it's important to understand that that's a limitation you're placing on yourself, and not one that you can hold up for if you're looking to top 8 an LVO or compete for your national team in the WTC. You just need to recognize the limitations of what you're doing. And even in situations like that where you're sitting there and you're committed that you will win with GSC, you then need to take a second look at it and say, okay, am I playing GSC because I just want to play GSC and I want to have fun, or am I trying to really compete with GSC? Because then you take the second layer of it where, okay, you need to then drill down and remove anything that's just there for the sake of it, and really drill into the heart and power in the faction. And that's where you'll find it can be quite difficult, and you'll want to leave your favourite units in. You might love using the Primaris Chaplain at the moment, and if you're just finding that he doesn't work for your win rate, you might just need to cut him, even if he's your favourite painted model. And I think this is an important concept to understand, is that it's not saying you have to kill your darlings. I don't think that this isn't writing where you are producing a product that you want people to read and buy and sell. This is for you to enjoy the game of 40k, but also to do as well as you can. And killing your darlings is a really important step to take to getting to the point where you can start becoming a better player, because you are removing any limitations on yourself that are being just placed there by your army, and you're able to remove the extra variable of having a poorer army, and you can just focus on yourself and becoming a better player as part of that. And that's why I think this is quite important. Thanks again, John and Danny, for having me on. I'm going to keep saying this after the end of every single episode. Thanks, guys.
Oh man, some spicy takes there for a minute there. Good. That was good. Yeah, I mean, the chill beats are still chill, and the getting good is still getting good. Danny, what is a darling that you have killed but have hated to do it?
Let's see. So, oh man, this is tough actually.
Yeah.
I normally keep my darlings. Maybe that's why I don't. Maybe that's why I never win. Let's see. Okay, so here's an example of that. I traditionally have always played with Eldrad in my Eldar army.
Do love Eldrad.
I do love Eldrad. But I did have to kill him when I wanted to compete in the Harlequin, for top Harlequin player a few years ago. I had to drop him out of my army list because he just wasn't fast enough, and he always got left behind. So I ended up putting in a Farseer Skyrunner instead, and that was a way, and it made my army better, like for sure. So that was a way that I could really like maximize that. So that's like an example of that, I guess, and kind of get to the heart of what's really good about my army.
Oh man, I have so many. I have so many. I mean, you know me, I tend to get attached to like one model and then try and build everything around it, from like Death Guard Terminator Sorcerer to Gargantuan Squiggoth to, I mean, I think every single army I've tried to run has one non-optimal thing that I just, for some bizarre reason, love and will not take until it goes too far and I have to not take, which is what we're going to be talking about next. But yeah, my most recent example would be that Terminator Sorcerer, where in theory, having a Meltagun and a Chain Fist that I can drop anywhere is great. But then if I could just, for less points, take a Malignant Plaguecaster who also does mortal wounds and also has, you know, can do this thing and also does this, it's just way better in that situation. Yeah. But it's a really important thing, and it kind of brings us to our next topic, though we highlighted after Danny so greatly brought us back to actually letting you guys know what the fuck we were going to talk about today. Try, fail, then try again. Really perfecting your army list, which is something like I personally have worked super hard on the last few years. And Danny, I know you find list writing, I think you said before, you find list writing like the hardest part of 40K?
I just like, I don't know. I always want to take units, and I feel like I am not the greatest at it all the time. So
I guess starting at the start, which is probably a great place to begin. How do you decide, like, when you're like, okay, I'm going to go to this tournament, or I'm going to go to this event, I'm going to play this game. How do you decide what your list is going to be?
Let's see. Well, first I decide how serious is the event that I'm going to, right? Like, do I want to try out something for fun? Do I want to try out something that is going to be really, really good? And it's sometimes hard for me to decide between those things. Sometimes I do take a fun list to a serious tournament and just see how good I can do with it, you know? But that being said, so that's kind of the first step that I take. And then I decide what kind of army I want to play. So I think about what kind of, first I never decide this based on what armies I'm going to see in the meta. Almost never. It's usually a cool concept that I want to play, like, or I want to play a certain army because that's like the army I'm concentrating on right now. Or maybe I'm trying to like put up some scores for best in faction or something like that, right? So that's kind of my next step. And then I kind of, if I don't already have a concept in mind for where I want to take the army, I will I'll work on trying to like look at maybe some lists on the internet, see what people are taking that's good. If it's been a while since I played, but usually I kind of have a concept in mind of what I want to play in the army. Specifically, usually models that I own. I don't usually try and buy extra models for an event, but I mean, I do if I have to. Like if something's so good in an army that you can't not take it, like I'll do that. And then once I've done all that stuff, I kind of start with a list. I start with an idea of what my units are going to try and do. So I make a list, like a rough draft of it. I kind of throw a bunch of units in there. Then I try and cut back. And then I kind of look at the list and I go, okay, well, and we've talked about this like numerous times on the show, right? Like, how does this army win the game? So I ask myself that. I look at what secondaries I should be taking, and I look at what things are gonna net me the most points, and if the army is viable. And I kind of run through some of the common matchups of things I would expect to play at an event, and if I feel like my list suffers against those kinds of armies, then I go, okay, well, if that's the case, what can I do to make sure that my list works, right? And the changes I need to make to kind of tech against those kind of armies that I expect to see either in the meta or at the event specifically. And then I do that stuff. That's kind of how I make a list for an event.
Yeah. So for me, up until very recently, I would start by opening my codex and I would read through the stratagems. And I would look for cool things that stood out to me or cool combos that I could do. And then thinking, how can I really maximize that combo? So something before we played a few months ago, like, so I'm looking at the new Deathguard Codex and look at the Harbingers. They have the Poxwalker strat, right? Where, you know, you can reroll all hits and wounds. And that combos really well with the Poxwalker strat from the main book where you get 6s or mortal wounds. So how can I build around that? What can I do? That didn't work out so good. I think in 8th, it worked out really well. Like as a way of how do I maximize the power level of my army or how do I maximize my damage output? And in 9th, it doesn't really work. So about, you know, a month ago before the most recent tournament we had, I kind of changed my thinking. And instead of opening my codex, I opened the GT pack and I went straight to the secondaries. And I looked at my army book and I looked at the secondaries and I'm like, okay, what does my play style maximize? So like knowing, like I played for years now, I know how I play, like regardless of whether I'm playing Tyranids or Eldar or Death Guard, like looking at it and being honest with myself, how I play doesn't really change. Like some of the tricks I do, some of the moves I do, but overall I'm still pretty overly aggressive. I'm still looking to move. I'm still looking at doing stuff like that. So with that in mind, what secondaries am I going to score? And trying to almost take the opposing army out of it completely because, I might all die, but I'm going to score these points. So I think for the most recent RTT we had, I looked at it, I was like, okay, I feel I can pretty reasonably score Spread the Sickness most games. So I feel like I should take a lot of Poxwalkers because those are like perfect for that. I also feel that I could reliably score Engage at all fronts in most games. So I have to have things that are fast or things that I can make sure that are in 4 table quarters or 3 table quarters every turn. And so in doing that, I need things that are durable because they need to stay in those quarters. And then if I look at that I gain maybe like I don't look at it as I can max the secondary. That's a trap right there. It's what secondary can I reliably score 8 to 10 points on regardless of who I'm playing.
Nice. I think that's great. Yeah.
And that's what I did, and that's how I built kind of the most recent iteration of of the list that I'm using. It's like, how can I reliably? Because if I feel I can score 30 points from secondary, I'm going to score 10 points because I'm going to be painted. I'm already 40 points right there, which is pretty big, and that means if I score 20 to 30 points on primary, that puts me 60 to 70 points, which is a pretty high scoring game. Whereas so if I can deny some scoring, that's going to help out a little bit. I think what's really important, and this is kind of, I think, what separates like the really good competitive players from your average ones, is after you have this list, not just showing up at an event and expecting to do really good for it. I want to say I've only improved because I've had practice games where I've gone in expecting to lose. And I think it's expecting the thing you need to do is view practice games not as a way to kind of pad your win-loss percentage, but to learn how your army plays, what works and what doesn't. And something, Danny, you taught me really early on is if you lose your practice game, don't change your list.
Yeah, keep playing with it, and see if you can do better the next time. I think that's really important.
Right. So I work really hard now personally to play the minimum of 3 games with a list without changing anything. Because maybe the first time you do your practice game, like, you know, your opponent brings knights and maybe, you know, you don't know what to do. You haven't played that army before and you get wiped, but maybe next time they bring sisters and you do really well against that. Well, then you have to ask yourself, what makes the 2 games different? What was different? Is there anyone that necessarily didn't work in both games? Like for our practice games, Danny, like I had to take a long, hard look at that Terminator Sorcerer and kill that darling because it really wasn't doing what I wanted it to do in that list, and other things could do that job way better. But yeah, so that's kind of how.
Yeah, that makes sense. You were super jazzed about that sorcerer too, so I felt really bad when you had to shoot him in the head and take him out of your list.
But see, I was super jazzed, but here I have a really rad model now. And the great thing about modern Warhammer that we just talked about with Val is everything is constantly shifting and changing. Like, so just because my darling right now isn't great doesn't mean in 6 months he's not going to be. Like, honestly, if that guy dropped 10 points, I would take him in a heartbeat. It's just kind of like at the current cost and what I need him to do. And I think it's important, like, to be jazzed about it, but to be honest about it too. So if you have units that aren't working, like another great example would be for me, Plague Marines. Like, I would love for Plague Marine spam to just be a thing. And looking at the Chardon book, that it might be a thing again soon, but right now it's not. And I'm being okay with that. And trying to find a list that fits my play style is going to score me points, and allow me to have fun. Because again, I see a lot of people, I think that's key. Well, what's that?
That's key. Having fun. That's a big part of it, man. That's the whole reason we do this.
Because a lot of the list advice I see is like someone will post a list and be like, hey man, this is what I'm thinking about playing. And so like you'll post your list and they'll be like, oh yeah, that's no good. This is what you need to play. And it's just like copy paste from like an Art of War battle report. Right. And I was like, okay, great. That works for them. But maybe your play style is different than that about you and different than Siegler. And that's the main thing for me about net listing is like you would get these lists and then you would play them, but they're not to how you usually play. Like maybe I net listed a super defensive list, and like Danny, you've played me enough to know that like if I'm not mid-table turn one, then I'm not having fun. So like if I like net list is like super defensive list, it's not going to win. It's not going to do good, and there's a lot of it that goes to like the pilot as being the reason why it's winning.
Well, there's no context there, John. Right? Like you don't have the context for why that list is good, which is why a lot of times those net lists like can fail.
Yeah.
You don't have the experience of like building the list from the ground up. And like, yes, a lot of people can take some people can take those lists and do very well with them, but that's definitely not everybody. So I think you need to get to a certain skill level before those become like really excellent lists.
But yeah, I think
personal opinion, I guess.
Personal opinion here, the best thing you can do to get better at 40K in this edition is look at the secondaries, look at what you know you can score, and build around that. And also, it's been said on a dozen podcasts now, don't take scrambles.
You don't take scrambles?
No, I wouldn't. Like, it's a lot of people say don't take deploy scramblers because you're speccing your army. So maybe putting 100 points towards getting it by dropping something in your opponent's deployment. So I mean, there's some armies where it's easier to do. Like Sisters have a pretty easy time of it. But a good opponent will be able to, and you've seen this against me when you did it, a good opponent can screen out their deployment zone pretty well against scramblers.
Yeah.
And
it's not hard to screen it out pretty well.
And because it's an all or nothing secondary, it's not fantastic. But still good.
Yeah, I mostly prefer the oh God, why can't I think of the name of this? Progressive secondaries.
Yeah.
I like those much more.
Things that score the end of your turn.
Usually. Although that's funny, I say that and I just talked about my Dark Angels list getting like 60 points at the end of the game, so I don't know, who knows.
But I think what's important for that is that kind of goes to the thing where you look at your secondaries, you look at the ones you want to score, and then you build your army around that. And your Dark Angels list is definitely something where it builds around that.
It builds around While We Stand, We Fight.
Yeah, which is super powerful if you can score it there.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, that's our little tidbit of advice for this week, I believe.
Hell yeah. That's a good tidbit. That's really solid advice for any player.
Hell yeah. And I got to say, like, for doubters, like, I took my own advice. That's how I built my list. And, like, yeah, it was a little 8-person RTT, but I ended up winning because I was able to score. My army died every single game, but I outscored my opponent because my list was designed not around killing, but it was designed around winning points in the mission. So yeah,
exactly. But that's what wins, right?
That's what wins.
You can't fault you there, man.
Points win, and that's what matters.
It turns out.
We're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna be right back. Be'lakor, Prince of the Chaos Undivided, got bumped to next episode. So we're gonna take a break, and we will come right back.
Earl Hagen was a legend. In 1960, he whistled his way into Hollywood and into our hearts. Decades later, he made a comeback, lending those lustrous lips in the 1980s to such bands as the Scorpions, Guns N' Roses, and Pat Benatar. A half-century after his humble beginnings, he's at it again. This time without cumbersome musical accompaniment, he'll have you wetting your whistle and whistling along. His new album, Earl Whistles Disney, is sure to be a hit with all generations. Order now and receive a bonus album, Earl Whistles More Shit, a collection of previously unreleased material of Earl's favorite songs through the years. On this bonus album, he demonstrates his newly mastered technique of inward whistling. Order yours today on compact disc or double-length cassette. Also available at fine retailers such as Walgreens, CVS, and participating Sam Goody stores. Earl Whistles Disney. Buy it today.
Oh man, and we're back, and that one was just for the one person who responds to every YouTube video asking us not to play that ad. But ironically, they do ask for a Patreon tier where they can get a version of this episode without this ad. I don't think they quite realize how little I enjoy editing to actually make that happen. There's not a dollar amount you could put on there to make me edit.
Dude, make it $100.
Dude, no, I still wouldn't do it for $100. Like Val was like, really? Yeah, you're gonna have to edit this down to 30 minutes. Like, no, we're just gonna run along today. That sounds awful. But yeah, so because we ran long with Val, Be'lakor is going to get bumped to the next episode where Danny and I will talk about it. Like an evolution, I believe, of our worst characters in 40k series. Not saying Be'lakor's worst, it's going to be just a Mob Rules history of Be'lakor. We're going to look at their notable deeds and then just make fun of them in the most uninformed way possible that two people can do looking at a Wikipedia article 5 minutes before they record.
Of course. As is tradition, right?
That quality that you've known to expect from us right here. Yeah, and then again, if you are interested, we do have a Patreon, Mob Rules. You got to turn that adult filter on because we're naughty.
Yeah,
gets you access to our Discord. Recently, Russell, one of our listeners, I found a random old Lord of the Rings box I won years ago that apparently he was looking for forever, so I just sent it to him because I would rather someone who would actually genuinely enjoy it had it than it would sit in my closet or I sell it on eBay. Because again, I'm very lazy.
Yeah, I know. I really need to move a bunch of stuff on eBay. That's next on my kind of to-do list here.
Big same. I have an Eldar army I'm going to get rid of, I think, and an Orc army I'm going to get rid of. I got to do it. I got to do it before they make plastic Aspect Warriors in 2030.
Oh yeah. So
that's going to be.
I'll be fine. I don't mind playing with my old ones. I like those models a lot.
Yeah. Danny, if you have anything else you want to add in there before we finish? Let's had a great time with Val. He had some real interesting points and some real good things to say about why GW was involved more in the community now, as well as kind of the community in general.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess like for me, other than of course plugging our brother and sister podcasts.
Hell yeah.
Of the Rogue Trader Network, which you can find wherever mediocre podcasts are downloaded.
If you want to look on YouTube to see some real Danny rage, just the latest Dangly Boys TTS battle report. I think, Danny, you mentioned earlier.
Not my finest moment, but yeah, definitely check it out. See how much of a bitch I am.
I'm just saying it because if Seth played me, it would be like turn one army dead. So,
nah, you'd be fine. You'd be fine. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, so we got them High Lords. I think they had an episode previously.
Yeah, and then we're gonna have
Michael on next time. I think,
yeah, right? Michael Tempe from the High Lords is gonna be on our next episode talking about the new game that he is releasing soon, Outward Realms.
Super cool, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And then NZ40 Shabal.
Yep. Which they've been playing in a couple of tournaments. Hayden did pretty good, I think, at his event. I think he went 3-1-1.
Yeah,
which is pretty good. So congrats, man. Nice
all
job.
the tournament news from places where you can be playing tournaments.
Yeah, no kidding. Although I'm a little disappointed he didn't win. I mean, you know,
well,
he
obviously
could have supported the network a little bit more and tried a little bit harder. But I guess somebody's got to play Craft World somewhere. Apparently, it was Hayden.
And then you actually were on a special network special on the Dangly Boys station with Kicker Kowalski from Frontline Gaming, talking about what makes a cool event.
Yeah, which was awesome. We kind of did an informal panel about things that were good for events. And I think we nailed about everything. Yeah. It's funny, like most of the people on there, like whenever they brought something up, I'm like, yep, that's true. That's true.
Did
that's
you mention
true.
drink tokens?
Very similar opinions.
Drink tokens are very important.
Oh, dude, we didn't even talk about drink tokens.
Yeah, that's very important. Tokens. Yeah. Also line etiquette. I hope you brought up line etiquette.
We did talk about line. We did talk about lines.
Good.
So, really fun episode. Really great to talk about. John, what about you? Do you have anything you want to talk about?
Man, I just want to thank Innes again, WTC Team Scotland captain, for continuing to provide us with lo-fi beats to get good to, with some just great little advice every week. I always enjoy getting those in my inbox. Thanks to Val for coming on. Especially after we had Peter the Falcon on, and we get a message from him be like, "Hey, bitch, why haven't you asked me on?" Which I'm like, we thought you'd say no. That's generally a response to most people. But yeah, very little actual to plug. We're excited. I think Danny, you and I can start recording again in person soon. Which, dude, I'm so hyped for. Before you leave in the summer, we're gonna get a few episodes in, and then. Yeah. Hell yeah, because Danny and I both, just to share your personal medical information, Danny and I both on the way to being COVID vaccinated.
Yeah, thanks for asking my permission first. I really appreciate it.
Dude, you're good. HIPAA says we're cool because it's a business expense. I don't know. That doesn't seem right.
Oh, why did I write this off?
As your own employer, you can sue yourself. Yeah, definitely check those out. Check what out? That's us. What the hell am I even talking about? Doesn't matter. No, I have very little plug.
Person? I don't know. John.
Or in person. Yeah, I'm excited to kind of record in person again. And even just have bad movie nights and all the other kind of fun stuff.
We might have some upcoming book reviews here coming up.
Oh, yeah. Warzone Charadon and the Drukhari Codex are coming. We're both very excited about those. Some spicy, it looks like the next iteration of formations are coming with Armies of Renown. I'm very excited about the Death Guard one because and
mini supplements
because like with the Death Guard one, I just see people bitching about, I can't take vehicles now, and here I am looking at my Death Guard army I've been using for the past 3 months that has 0 vehicles in it. So I'm like, that's pretty cool. And then they're like, there's a stratagem where it's like, hey, you can shoot if Poxwalkers are in combat with people. I'm like, okay, that seems pretty cool. I've even thinking about dropping just Plague Marine squads and rapid fire against combat, beside a tally man. That seems pretty rad.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, just lots of cool stuff coming down.
Even just flame marine dudes that are fighting your Poxwalkers, right?
Hell yeah. Just adding 6 inches to that range. That would be 4-6 flamers. Yeah. -1 toughness. It's all good. Oh man. And then you don't even care that you're -1 to hit anymore. Lots of good stuff coming. It's obviously, to me, it's obvious that the pandemic is kind of taking its toll in the release schedule, because I don't think there would be quite so much of a fuss about Charadon coming out the same week as Drukhari if the original release dates were honored. But it's coming.
Have you seen the people bitching about this online? I've seen a bunch of videos about that. It's really shocking to me. Again, I understand people saying oh, well, this is a money grab or something like that, but we're getting more content. Why would we not want this stuff? And when have Codex supplements ever been inside the Codex?
Sure.
So I don't really understand what the complaint is.
And I want to point people to my 6th edition Tyranid army, which had the Codex, Shield of Baal,
right,
Imperial armor, digital data slates, and a White Dwarf article to run.
Right.
So it is what it is. You can call it rules bloat. I'm going to graybeard you and just be like, man, it was so much worse before.
You're a rules bloat bitch.
Holy shit. Yeah, dude, it was so much worse before. It was awful. But yeah, So yeah, next time we're going to be back with Michael Tempe from the High Lords to talk about Outward Realms, this brand new strategy game that is going to be kickstarted in May, I believe. We're also going to talk about Be'lakor.
Yes. Yep.
And excitement of is just literally amazing new model. Holy cow, that almost made me like trash my entire Death Guard. That guy looks so cool.
He's so cool, yeah.
And then probably some other things as well. I think, Danny, you and I are going to get a game in between now and then too, so we can talk about that and how much of a bitch I am in general. Not even about the game, just in general.
Just in general, yeah.
If there's stuff you guys want to hear, shoot us a message. We're on Facebook at Mob Rules AK. Find me on Twitter. It's Hey John Q. And let us know, what do you want to hear? If it's nothing, then I will literally just release an hour of dead air. It's probably more entertaining than what we usually release.
Yeah, that's true.
That's fair. Danny at Villicate5 on Twitter. Is there anything else you want to plug?
Join our Patreon if you want to interact and hang out with us in a digital format. Or if you don't, which you probably shouldn't, honestly.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
But most people who join just kind of tell me, like, I fucked my mom and my mom's a whore. And that's generally how the meme channel goes. And I'm just like, okay, sure.
Cool.
Is what it is. But occasionally you get Hobbit miniatures out of it. So, swings and roundabouts. But for Mob Rules,
you can have you can watch John and I have a conversation with ourselves for like 10 minutes early in the morning.
Hell yeah. When we get like psyched about Charizard, like it's one of the 4 ways Danny and I communicate. I mean, I know I started the theme music, but yeah, like literally, like occasionally we just get super excited about stuff. No, you're good.
We're so good at it. Right?
We're so good. That's good. Okay, and then I'm gonna clap as a sign.
I'm done. Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, so for Mob Rules, I've been John.
I've been Danny.
And we'll see you next time.